And you're very welcome along to this week's episode of the Football Kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get into it.
The Football Kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Ronan Mullen is with me in studio. Damien Delaney is on the line. Damien, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Ronan's a Man United fan. I think are we allowed officially?
I've been here 6 years. I've managed to keep it under wraps.
You have not managed to keep it under wraps. You were delighted last week with this. Is it a secret?
Oh well, I'll try my best.
Damien, did you support anybody as a kid? Are you?
I supported Newcastle in the mid-90s. The whole Kevin Keegan, Tino Asprilla, David Ginola, Les Ferdinand. That was growing up because I was at that age where you were really influenced by the magic of it all, and they were my team. Yeah.
What a way to fall in love with football! That was like one of the all-time great teams to watch.
That was incredible. I mean, I remember exactly the 4-3 game and Keegan being slumped over the advertising hoarding, and just Darren Peacock with the long hair and Philip Albert. Right through to Les Ferdinand. It was just an incredible team.
I can see why you would really fall for that. And the quality of football that they played, the excitement, it did feel like they were going to get over the line. It felt at one stage, I thought they were going to beat that Man United team to a league title because we didn't realise just how obsessively brilliant Ferguson was at that stage.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole Kevin Keegan interview, I would love it if we beat them. That sticks out as well for me. But I think they were 12 points clear. And Man United did have a couple of games in hand, if I remember correctly, so it wasn't quite the 12-point collapse that maybe it's made out to be. But they still should have got it over the line. But unfortunately, that team just couldn't never take a backward step or see a game out. They just went for it full throttle and unfortunately fell apart when they came under pressure.
We'll talk about the current Newcastle team. They're playing on Sunday against Wolves. The other game on Sunday is Forest against Spurs. But it's a really interesting Saturday slate of games. Southampton versus Manchester United, Liverpool, Bournemouth and Fulham against Arsenal. Are Manchester United back? Are you feeling confident, Ronan, that there's something good happening here? That the stirrings of something?
I don't know, like Damien would have had some great analysis over the years on the Solskjaer reign and why there were potentially limitations to what was achievable under that template, and there were obviously intricacies in the performance on Monday, but for all intents and purposes there were some mirrors of what Solskjaer attempted to do against quote-unquote superior opposition and sit a little bit deep and use that potent pace on the break. And the first goal was actually very well constructed from United. They managed to recycle the ball, and that shows a little bit of intuition, but also worked on the training ground that they were able to recycle possession like that. But the second goal was quite, Manchester United of old. But whether, tomorrow's going to be a case study of whether they can break down a team who were expecting to sit quite deep and flip the roles almost from Monday night. And that's why Ten Hag was brought in, and it's about time. I think he should start implementing some of that stuff.
It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what they are. What now that the dust has settled a little bit on last week, Damien, what do you think is the truth about where Manchester United are at the moment?
First of all, Monday night was an exceptionally good performance, an exceptionally good team performance. I think over the last number of years, Man United have had a lot of good performances, big wins, but they were always kind of based around individual moments of magic or, just the team catching fire. But you could kind of, when you looked at it a bit more deeper, it was still kind of, built on matchsticks almost. But I think Monday night was definitely a performance where I thought, oh, that's a team performance. All 11 of them bought into the high press early on. Liverpool couldn't get out of their own defensive third. The front four were high. They were pressing. They were engaging. They're exact opposite number. So like Sancho and Robertson and Elanga and Trent and Rashford with the centre back who was on it. And then you saw the two central midfield players pushed in on Liverpool's two central midfield players of Jordan Henderson and James Milner. And then, of course, the centre-backs pushed right in as well. So it was an exceptionally good team performance, and they absolutely deserved their 2-0 win. I think they can back it up on Saturday. I think that, I always, when a manager cracks the whip, especially early in his reign, and by the sounds of it, after the first two games he did, it can go one of two ways. A lot of the players can just kind of go, not really sure about this, and go the other way, and then, the manager's hung out to dry. But he's cracked the whip and he's got a response. He's got a reaction. They bought in, they believed. And it looks like the playing was over from Ten Hag. Dropping Ronaldo, dropping Maguire, dropping Shaw, send out a message. They were 3 players that were pretty much undroppable for their entire time that they've been at Manchester United. They always started when they were fit, bar 1 or 2 incidents. But in the main, they were starters. I think that when you crack the whip and you get response is a good thing, because players then just go, we like this because we just beat Liverpool, and everybody loves getting praise. And Man United got an awful lot of praise. So hopefully it's the kind of eureka moment that Ten Hag was looking for, and now his word should become gospel and the players will just believe in him. That's what you're hoping. But the fear, of course, is that they drift right back to their old ways against Southampton. I don't think they will. I think I saw something on Monday night where I thought it looked good. So I think that even with the style of play, they should have enough for Southampton.
Can I ask you about Bruno Fernandes? Because there was a story out last year, I think it might have been Miguel Delaney, it could have been somebody else, who was talking about how there's a view from opposition coaches that he's tactically anarchic, and so therefore it's very difficult to build stuff around him. And you could see why somebody might say that. And yet, in a formation like the one at on Monday night, you can also see how he can do the type of hard running that is required from a forward player who can also play into midfield and who can use the ball well and can use his skill set. So I guess it's kind of emblematic. Like if you think Ten Hag is going to be able to use some of the players who are already there and who clearly have talent but have not been managed properly, then he can make big improvements very quickly. But if he has to get rid of everybody, it's going to take much longer. So that's why I'm interested in your take on his performance and what role he might have.
I don't think that hard running was ever Bruno Fernandes' issue. He was always a willing runner. He just did what he wanted. He closed down when he felt like it. Last year we saw several times he'd go and close down the centre-backs and his teammates wouldn't be behind him, and he'd turn around and he'd be waving his arms. He was I think the words I described him over the last couple of years was he's a free spirit, and Solskjaer gave him that creative freedom to go and do what you want. And if you want to close, you close. And that's why he always looked very, very disjointed. And the concept that I think it's hard to build a team around someone like Bruno Fernandes because he is so free-spirited is accurate. I said that a number of times over the last year or two. But you need to give him some boundaries and give him some direction, and he needs to buy into it. He just can't go on the pitch and press when he feels like it and then complain when his teammates don't press. There has to be triggers for him. But at the same point, you don't want to tie down an incredibly creative player. So there's a happy medium or a kind of a limit to what you want to give up Bruno Fernandes. He does need boundaries, and on Saturday or Monday night, he certainly looked like he was performing a role within the team in and out of possession, and it wasn't just I'm going to go on the pitch and do as I please. So that's what I was talking about, my initial point of if Bruno Fernandes can get performances while playing within a team structure, they'll stop believing in the manager. Because sometimes when a manager comes in, he tries to put boundaries on a player and he feels like his personal performances aren't kind of what they should be, and he's not getting the numbers or the assists and goals that he has been getting. He might kind of just go, no, not for me, I'm just going to keep doing what I want. But now, I think Bruno had a good game in and out of possession. I do think he's still an incredibly infuriating player, even when Liverpool scored and he went into the net and got the ball. I think Liverpool players are surprised how nice they were asking from the ball when they would well win the right to put him in the net in the front row of the stand and rip that ball off him. But once he gets that petulant, stuff out of his game, I think he'll be a tremendous team player moving forward for Man United. And
that, I think, gives Man United fans hope, because it's not a full squad reboot. Actually, he does have resources there of good quality players who can compete at the very top level. Yeah, and the numbers point is an interesting one, because he started like a house on fire on the stat sheet, and then once that started to dwindle, people started to point fingers and his production level has dropped off. But Monday was a classic case in point of no goals, no assists, but he was involved in almost every facet of the game and got to the pitch of it on a human level, which sounds a little bit twee, but in a game like that where United are in such disarray and at a low ebb, the likes of Fernandes and Martinez got to the pitch of it from the get-go, and I think that was important as a bedrock for the performance. What did you make of Martinez? One of the best centre-back performances I've seen in a long time. Individually, he was incredibly good. I mean, everything that he did, he was just like a one-man wrecking machine. He was getting in the way of everything. He was blocking shots. He was
jumping for headers, he was competing, he was performed a real leadership role for Manchester United. The type of centre-back performance I think that they've missed in a long while. It was Vidic-esque, at his peak. So, if he can maintain that, I think he'll go down as one of the all-time greats for United.
It's funny you brought up Vidic. If memory serves me right, Vidic was absolutely terrible in his first game or two and then turned into one of the best signings they ever had. It just took him a little while to need to find my bearings here. Is Harry Maguire not being in the team one of the reasons why Martinez was also so good? It's like, I'm not actually also covering up for somebody. I've got somebody I trust beside me.
It's the reason that they were so good. But I think Luke Shaw not being in the team either was a huge help. Malacia is an extremely mobile left back. I mean, a prototypical modern day fullback. He was prepared to stand one-on-one with Salah and almost bait Salah and say, okay, run him behind because I'm confident I've got the legs to go with you. Which means he stopped Salah getting the ball to feet a lot. And then obviously Liverpool, Van Dijk couldn't hit those big switches that he normally hits. But you've got a really, really good centre-back, really, really mobile centre-back. I think the game, without being too negative on it, and I don't want to be too negative, but the game suited, it was all played on the ground. It was all Man United pressing. You look at the Brentford game was different. It was back to front balls spun down the side. So he will face different tests. This isn't the Eredivisie where, nearly every team plays the same way and everyone retains possession of balls on the floor and you never really get tested. I think a lot of teams will have watched the Brighton and Brentford games and thought, right, how do we expose this Manchester United team? And, pumping balls in the box is one way of doing it, and I know his height has been mentioned, but 175 centimetres is just under 5'9", which in reality is 5'8". So he's 5'8", 5'9". If teams are just flinging balls in the box, eventually, he is going to get caught. So maybe that's something that teams will do an awful lot more. Goalkeepers like Brighton will sling it long an awful lot more. So, it remains to be seen. But his performance on Monday night was, as I said, one for the ages. He really was that good.
It's been a remarkable transfer window in the end if those players stick. So they've got a new left back. Christian Eriksen looks to have found a role, and when Casemiro is in the team, it'll be a more defined role and there'll be less experimentation going on with that. He certainly seems to have settled in very quickly. You've got a new centre back, and so therefore you don't have the two English defenders who've been not good over the last while. So he's not doing a bad job so far.
Yeah, and that's all you're looking for. Nobody's expecting Manchester United to win the league this year. No one's probably expected Man United to finish in the top 2 or 3. If Man United can nip into 4th place and get back in the Champions League, I think that's a successful season for them, and it'll be an incredibly successful season for the manager because, we're just looking for signs that he's got a handle on what's going on. And he really has picked out the issues and the problems that Man United have suffered for the last 2 or 3 years. And he can't change them all at once. He can't do it in all window. It could be the guts of 6 transfer windows, which could be 3 seasons by the time you actually see what Ten Hag is about. Remember, Jurgen Klopp came in. It took him a long time to unravel the problems of the past and get his team in place. It was probably about 4 or 5 transfer windows. But you saw signs there was something building. And it's the same with Ten Hag, which is why Saturday against Southampton is a huge day for them. That if they can marry that up with the performance on Monday night, get 2 wins in a row, you can get something moving there. And then January comes along and you can get more signings if they're finished in this window, which I don't think they are by the looks of it. So they could add 1 or 2 more. And then January you could add maybe 1 or 2 more and also offload 1 or 2 more. Maybe before the transfer window, and then you'll start seeing the bones of what Erik Ten Hag is trying to do. And I think once fans will see that, they can see the incremental progress that he's looking for, then fans will be happy that they're in the right direction and they're on the way back, and they've almost been at their low ebb now, and the long climb back is real.
One last question about this before we move on to the Liverpool situation. The other side, the flip side of that coin from Monday night. If you're Ten Hag, are you desperately trying to make sure that Ronaldo and Harry Maguire are gone in this window so that they're not around the place, and that it's more important almost for the group dynamic that you don't have those, like the club captain annoyed not playing and the most legendary player, the second greatest player of all time, whatever, and the pouting and the soap opera with Ronaldo? Are you desperate to get them out of the building almost at any price at this stage?
Well, that depends. We're hearing a lot of stories that Ronaldo's been disruptive. I don't think Harry Maguire would be disruptive. He's still club captain, and I think he doesn't look like the type of guy that would be, upset that he's not playing. He's going to play a lot because Varane isn't the most reliable centre-back, so he's going to get an awful lot of minutes, which is a huge worry for Manchester United because, the beauty of their performance was built, I think, on the two centre-backs and the high line that they maintained. And the pressure they put on Roberto Firmino as opposed to Harry Maguire passing Firmino on to McTominay, and then McTominay can't do his job, and they said the forwards got, and then the whole thing gets all out of shape. So I don't think Harry Maguire will be an issue, and I don't think they'll be looking to get rid of him because they've just got rid of Eric Bailly. They will need somebody in the building. Ronaldo might be a different kettle of fish. He doesn't look happy. He hasn't come out and put any of the rumours that he wants to leave to bed and said, look, I want to stay. He hasn't. So by the looks of it, Ronaldo will leave or is looking to leave, and that's someone you got to move on because he is such a personality that he could disrupt the whole place if he's sulking or he walks into meetings and he's not paying attention, he's not training properly because he's looking for a move. So he could be one that they are looking to move on before the window, which wouldn't be a terrible thing for Manchester United, I don't think.
Our Twitter users are not yet convinced, Ronan?
No, so basically the question today was, did we see enough evidence on Monday that Man United will make the top four this season? And 63% say no. So 37% think they can. But if it's a performance in isolation, which we have to see, like the proof will be in the pudding, whether they can back it up. And I think the followers here are suggesting not. But I think tomorrow they should get the job done.
How would you vote in that?
I'd say still no. I'd be intrigued to see how the midfield dynamic works now with Casemiro. I appreciate he's a world-class signing in the door, but how it's going to be calibrated, like there's not a ball player as such in there. I know Eriksen has played there for Inter Milan and played there the other night in a deeper position, but week in, week out, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out, I think.
Okay. Maybe Chelsea are giving people some hope that actually they're not going to automatically be penciled into the top four, so there's room there in a way that there wouldn't have been. And
then I suppose Arsenal have made good to such a frenetic extent from the get-go. Again, we need a bigger sample size of fixtures to really determine that. They've had a soft enough start to the season, but you have to say they've made an impressive start to the season.
All right, next fixture is Liverpool against Bournemouth. What's going on at Liverpool, Damien?
Ooh, interesting. I don't think anyone saw the start of the season coming that they've had. They just seem to be lacking a little bit of motivation, a little bit of concentration from what I see. They look a little bit flat. Now, whether that's because, Jurgen Klopp and his fitness team have looked at the season ahead and the 2 or 3 years that his team has had on the road, and they've been very, very, very good for a prolonged period of time. And maybe they've tried to pace themselves, and so the pre-season might not have been the most taxing. Maybe that they kind of just look to kind of hit peak form because you've got the World Cup factored into it. So maybe there's something along those lines that maybe he realised that we can't set off at a sprint. Now, we didn't expect him to set off at walking pace like they have done. Maybe he just thought that with the opening round of fixtures that they've had, that kind of being maybe 70, 85% at it was enough to keep them, and then they'll build it up and keep it moving. And they've just been caught. They've just been a little bit flat. You can look an awful lot. That's what I see anyway. That would be my take on it. What I believe has happened. You can look a little bit deeper and say that the change of style of play. I was watching Liverpool against Man United, and I suppose the Liverpool we all become accustomed to was this heavy metal football, wasn't it? It was just. Van Dijk wouldn't have been trying to force balls into Henderson. They would have just slung it over the top. As soon as they saw the two centre-backs as high as what they were, they would have just given Manchester United everything that they offered. And that was, centre-backs are high. So you'd have seen those internal runs from Salah, from the left-back in behind the two centre-backs. Mane, on the other side with those internal runs, and they would have just kept slinging it. And they might not have had any joy from it, but they would have certainly made Manchester United think that, we can't keep. But Liverpool just kept playing into Manchester United hands, just kept playing it into midfield, kept forcing it into Jordan Henderson, who's probably not the most technical number 6 when you think along the lines of when you compare him to Thiago Alcantara, and the same with James Milner. Before the ball would come into Henderson and it would just be slung around the corner first time, blind pretty much. That's what he does an awful lot of. And I just think they just played it to Manchester United hands. And I think is that Klopp moving away from this heavy metal type football when you see the likes of Harvey Elliott, Thiago Alcantara, Nunez coming into the team. They're now going to be more build up with a focal point of a number 9. So Ronaldo remains to be seen. But I certainly know that if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd be more than comfortable with my manager, and that he will figure out the issues that they have very, very quickly. And if they have made mistakes in pre-season and they haven't worked the players as hard, then I'm pretty sure that'll be rectified.
It felt a little bit like they have definitely evolved over the last couple of years with the signing of Thiago, and when he's in the team they can do something different by trying to keep the ball a bit more often. It almost felt a little bit like they were trying to do that even though they didn't have Thiago in the team. Like they'd forgotten that there's another way of playing. We play with Thiago this way, but when we don't have him, we do the other thing.
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. And the three midfield players you have are not technically good enough. Even Fabinho, if he started, is technically good enough to take the ball in tight spaces, in traffic, and move it on through the thirds of the pitch and find the little pockets of Firmino. But I was a bit disappointed in the first half at Liverpool when they saw that Manchester United had, and there was an atmosphere around Old Trafford wasn't there, be it because of the whole Glazer situation. They were high, they were pressing, there was an energy in the stadium, you could feel it. And sometimes as a player in a away stadium, you could feel that, and you kind of go, you know what, we're not going to offer ourselves up on a silver platter for this, so we're just going to spin them in behind. And I just didn't see that really, to be honest, enough of it. So again, these are just minor fixes. Maybe not the fitness issue or the whatnot, but I'm pretty sure that if Thiago's back and Nunez will be back soon, we'll start seeing Liverpool taking shape, and I wouldn't be overly concerned because the others seem to have dropped points as well. So
I have no doubt that the midfield three that Klopp fielded on Monday was the three he figured would give him the best chance to win the game, but you couldn't help but think there's some sort of message being sent there, like, I have to feel James Milner here. Like, this is the best I've got. And I appreciate that the Jude Bellingham deal is like a long way down the tracks for next summer. But he's looking at his competitors. Even Man City signed Calvin Phillips and put him on the bench. That team has needed midfield reinforcements for a while. Because to your point, Thiago's a sensational player, but he's not sensational if he's sitting in the stands. And Naby Keita just hasn't hit the heights that he was pegged for. So I think Klopp secretly is. I know publicly he's making the point that he's happy with what he's got, but if they could get a midfielder in before the deadline, I'd say snap your hand off. Yeah,
it's funny because James Milner started the 6-0 route, didn't he? So maybe he has a thing that Milner's energy was enough to get around the pitch, but they just couldn't get past goal. They didn't have the technical midfield players, then why play into them? The message should have been before the game, or maybe Klopp just didn't offer United enough respect, and he was just going, these three are definitely good enough. But very, very quickly they should have realised this is turning south, and with every time Manchester United won the ball, it was almost reminiscent of Liverpool at Anfield, wasn't it? Pressing high up the pitch early on, winning the ball back, get the crowd energised. The crowd could feel there was something going on, and once that wall starts, it's very, very hard to rein it in. So I suppose it's that issue, and then there's obviously a tactical issue as well, I think.
When you're a centre-back and you're playing alongside Trent, and obviously, we know how creative he is and how many assists he has and all that stuff that he brings going forward, what are your main concerns about defending alongside him?
Well, I think, if anyone thinks that Jurgen Klopp doesn't realise that Trent leaves holes, but I think he's quite happy to let Trent go. But when it's Matip and when Fabinho are playing, they're quite able to slide across and minimise the damage. It doesn't get exposed as often. It's just that with Milner, Henderson and Elliott, there wasn't a whole pile. Henderson was drifting over there, but he's not a defensive midfield player as such, or not as good as Fabinho anyway, or Rodri. And Matip instead of Gomez or Konate has a mobility to go out there as well. So I just think it was exposed, but you can't put the reins on Trent, I don't think. He offers you so much going forward, and Klopp knows that, of course, he's not a world-class defender. That doesn't mean you go and sign Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Man United and go, let's not have anyone, and go the complete opposite extreme. No. He's quite happy to let him go, and he's quite happy to say that you're going to probably cost us a couple of goals a season. But we live with that. But I think Fabinho and Konate or Matip were the kind of the real misses there. And Trent was trying to do what he does. It's just that the holes weren't filled or plugged as quickly as what they should have been.
What did you make of the very public recriminations between Milner and Van Dijk after the Sancho goal, Damien?
I suppose internally I thought Van Dijk took that very, very well. I think if one of my teammates was talking to me like that, it would have been a different outcome. But I suppose ultimately, I think Van Dijk took it so well because he realised that he was wrong. Milner, was busting a gut to stop Sancho getting the shot off with his right foot, and done enough to make him chop back on his weaker side. That's his job done. And he's perfectly entitled to expect a centre-back there to be closed out. And Van Dijk just was nowhere near, to be honest. He stood in the 6-yard line and he couldn't figure it out, unfortunately. And he's had a slow start to the season too, which contributes to the whole thing that Liverpool are going through. But as I said, I fully expect Klopp to iron out whatever issues they have. He'll devise a way to play, even with the injuries and suspensions, and get Liverpool going and being the great motivator that Klopp is. I'm pretty sure he will get Van Dijk into gear, because the minute he just doesn't look like he started the season well.
No, and there's a World Cup coming up for some of those players too that, there's plenty of reason for them to start getting into gear very quickly. This is the football kick-off with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. That Liverpool-Bournemouth game is on Premier Sports at 3 o'clock. The Southampton United game is BT Sport at 12:30. And then Fulham Arsenal is on at 5:30 on Sky Sports. Arsenal's start of the season has been very impressive. What do you make of it? Has it just been the quality of opposition, or is there something really impressive happening here?
Well, you still have to go and beat the opposition. I know Ronan said there was a soft start, and it was a soft start. But I mean, how many times have teams had soft starts and not started well? So you have to beat what's put in front of you. But there's going to be much bigger tests for Arsenal up the road. That's going to define where their season go. Because they're going to come up against a Liverpool, a Man City or a Chelsea, and they're going to go down after like 15 minutes, these types of situations. And that's when you see what a team is really made of. Have they got the mettle then to kind of consolidate, stay in the game, not let it get away from them, and then slowly claw their way back into it and get a draw out of a game that they really would have lost in the past. So far so good for Arsenal. I won't say it's difficult to judge them. It's not, because I think it's brilliant what they've done. They've started and done exactly what they needed to do, and they've been pretty emphatic in their performance as well. They haven't just limped around and kind of got over the line barely. They've been pretty decent in what they've done. But as I said, there'll be bigger tests up the road for Arsenal, and that'll be the kind of the deciding factor for Arteta and what he's done. Has he instilled the mentality that he's looking for in Arsenal? Has he got the right players in the right positions? Has he got rid of the weak characters who kind of go to pot as soon as the pressure comes on, or if they go 1-0 down away from home, they just throw the towel in and say, oh, well, there's always next week. Has he got the mentality right in the team that will dig in and make things difficult for the top teams? And it might not be pretty, it might not be pleasing on the eye, but they get a draw away from home against Chelsea, and all of a sudden, you're thinking, okay, that's the starting point for them.
Why is Gabriel Jesus the second coming of whatever? He just looks amazing.
My take on Gabriel Jesus is there's nothing better than a player with a point to prove. And he looks seriously motivated. I think it would have hurt for him last year being the only number 9 in a football club, and the manager chose to play without a number 9. That's, I won't say humiliating, but it's not a vote of confidence if you're the only number 9 and you can't get a game, and they're playing with Phil Foden as a false 9. That's obviously Manchester City's style. But I think he's gone to Arsenal and he's just said, right, I've been sitting around with all this pent-up anger and energy for a number of years. So it's getting unleashed now, and in fairness to him, I'm all for it.
It's funny, like Tim Vickery was on during the week doing a profile piece on Anthony and the likes of Julian Alvarez in recent weeks, and he would have done one for Gabriel Jesus when he arrived in the Premier League, and made parallels that the original Ronaldo had made himself, that he saw some of himself in Gabriel Jesus, and
we never really saw that at City.
For whatever reason, like you'll recall, he kind of ousted Aguero from the team initially when he first arrived, and then was just reconfigured into a Pep bot and never got to flourish in what he's showing now. I know, again, small sample size, but in the 3 games he's a human highlight reel. Like, he's all over the pitch and affecting games. So he'll obviously want to get the goal numbers back up to where he sees himself being a number 9 that can carry a team into the top 4 and possibly further. And he'll want to be leading the line for Brazil and Qatar, no doubt about that either. Yeah,
so he's got a lot to play for. All right, let's talk a little bit about Wolves and Newcastle. Newcastle's start of the season has been good. It's a win and 2 draws. They've got 5 points, and that topsy-turvy game against City was one where in retrospect, maybe they would have been able to batten down the hatches as the Eddie Howe influence goes on, or maybe that's what they're going to be like. I don't know. Maybe we should expect them to score loads and concede loads. But how good a job has Eddie Howe done to manage what is a difficult scenario where everybody expects you to sign every player in the world, and then the players that you do sign, you've got to get them in the team pretty quickly. So what kind of a job do you think he's doing at the moment?
I think Eddie Howe and Newcastle as a whole, I suppose, off the pitch, I've been really impressed with Newcastle, because when you kind of come into the money that they've come into, as you said, we all expect, marquee signings. We all expect wild, salaries, and that's what we all thought was going to happen. A bit like when Manchester City signed Robinho, signings that didn't make sense, but they were like good for the profile of the club. And Newcastle so far have resisted all those temptations to go and splurge. And then actually, yesterday I saw that they were in for Isaac, the Swedish striker, for 70 million, maybe. But look, whether that turns out to be a good signing or not, I don't know. But I think they've done well, and they've not been bullied, because I think they've been in for a lot of players. And when you've got the kind of money that they have, a lot of owners and football clubs will be like, oh, let's just chuck 25% on the price and see if we can, if Newcastle are desperate for signings, they might actually give it to us. But they've resisted all those temptations, and they've kind of maintained what they had, and they signed the right calibre of player. And it looks like that these owners, and I know they took the director of football from Brighton, who's a very, very experienced director of football, and it's his job to identify the talents, but also to keep it sane when it comes to prices, because I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, they could get a bit giddy. So from that point of view, I've been really impressed with Newcastle, and on the pitch. I think Eddie Howe's done an incredible job. He's putting together a team, and maintaining the team ethic when you're kind of bringing in a lot of players, or when there's huge changes or upheaval at a football club. It can be quite difficult. Players, are coming in on big money, and players have been there aren't quite getting paid what they think they should be getting paid, and dressing rooms can disintegrate very, very quickly in those types of situations. So he's got a lot on his plate, Eddie Howe, but so far so good for him. And I think the draw against Manchester City last weekend will be a huge bonus for them.
I don't think it's by design. I'm sure if Eddie Howe was given the opportunity of Declan Rice and James Maddison arriving for £200 million tomorrow, he'd probably take them. But secretly, I'd say in his private moments, he's quite happy that they're continuing with this sort of incremental upward mobility, where he's still putting his shape in the team. It's character driven as well, and they're going up the league bit by bit. If they brought in a ton of marquee signings, there'd be an expectation like there was on, say, Ranieri in that first Chelsea season, where they threw the checkbook at it and he was gone by the end of that season. Jose came in. So I think Eddie Howe, he sees this as a long-term project, and it probably will be at this stage.
That's the thing, though. The pressure will come at some point, especially if they start spending 70 million on strikers who score a goal in every 3 or 4 games. Like that would be what are we doing this one?
I was so proud of Newcastle up until yesterday, and then I saw that and I went, oh no, here we go. They panicked.
That may well be the start of it. We'll see if that deal actually comes off. This is a surprisingly big game for Wolves, who have 1 point after 3 games this season, when we kind of expected Wolves to be in that second or third tier of teams fighting for the last Europa League place. Is it just a bad start of the season for them, or is there something that, the sack race is up and running?
I don't know. Like you say there, what we always expect from Wolves. I never know what to expect from Wolves. They're always just kind of there, and I suppose they always tip away, pick up points, and then they always get a highlight reel win against a big team, and then all of a sudden you glance at the table on a Monday and they're like 7th, and you're going, oh, they've been doing really well, but you never really focus too much on them. Maybe that's just me, and I don't know why, but they always tip away nicely, Wolves, and I suppose, I don't really have any major opinions on Wolves, to be honest with you, lads.
Fair enough. Forest and Spurs is the last one. Forest spending has been out of control. It's very interesting to see what they're doing, and sometimes that really worked for teams who come up in the first season, and the second season is the one where you really need to judge them. So I guess we wait and see for that one. But what about the job that Spurs are doing? A lot of people complained after the Chelsea game that they weren't really that good and they didn't really deserve the point, but in some ways is that missing the point that Conte is never going to go away? You're in a street fight with him until the 98th minute, and then potentially afterwards as well.
100%. That was exactly my sentiments after it. Like, people were saying, Spurs were supposed to show up here and play great football and blitz the league. That's not what Antonio Conte is about. I love the fact that they just hung in there and got a draw, when in reality, they should have been beaten 3 or 4-0. And they rolled their luck a little bit. There's a couple of very dodgy decisions with the hair pull and the tackle on Havertz leading up to the goal. But that's what Antonio Conte does. He picks up points when no one expects him to. When they don't play well, he brings a grit to a football team and a toughness and a real attitude. And I love that about Antonio Conte. And Spurs fans, traditionally Tottenham have always been a great footballing kind of institution who produce young players like Harry Winks, who are technically incredibly very good, but you kind of go, is there any real steel behind them? And I think he's slowly trying to change that mentality in a football club, and he will undoubtedly drag Tottenham forward. And the Tottenham fans want to complain. I don't think they will, but if Tottenham fans complain that they didn't go to Stamford Bridge and blitz Chelsea and play great football, then I think they're mistaken, because that's not what Antonio Conte does. He goes to Chelsea, gets a draw when he shouldn't, and then beats the teams he should beat, like Southampton on the opening day of the season, and they will just be dogs really for the year.
Yeah, very interesting to see where they finish, because they're the ones who you can see catapulting into that top 4 early and staying there all year, and so everybody else is kind of chasing them. And I think a good chance that Arsenal maintain that too, and then all of a sudden, who are Man United going to be trying to squeeze out here, or are they that good? I don't know. This
is the thing, and there's a sense of belonging about Tottenham now, where no more imposter syndrome when you've got Antonio Conte as your front man. There's an inbuilt confidence there, and it's actually a healthy disappointment that they weren't like the Harlem Globetrotters up at Stamford Bridge and had to grind out a result like a team that's been there and done that. So,
and the stadium is spewing off cash.
Yeah, and like the director of football Paratici element of it, obviously fundamental in getting the Bentancur deal over the line, and Kulusevski, who've been key players for them. But like Antonio Conte's fingerprints are all over every signing that they've made. Like the profile of player exactly fits everything he's flourished with in the
past.
Apart
from Jed Spence, obviously, he said, "This isn't my signing."
Well, Jed Spence, yeah.
That was very weird.
I think they just did that for the Twitter puns, Six Sense spin-off. But everything else, like you look at Perisic, who like Jose Mourinho wants to sign him 5 years ago, and Man United Ed Woodward, for all his knowledge, deemed that Perisic was too old. And he's still impacting Premier League games in 2022.
All right. Well, enjoy the weekend's fixtures. My thanks to both of you for being part of the show today. The football kick-off with Sky, all the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. Our 2 live games on Sunday. Wolves versus Newcastle kicks off at 2 o'clock. Dave McIntyre and Kenny Cunningham will be on duty for Off the Ball on that one. And Forest Spurs at 4:30. Stephen Doyle and Keith Tracy are on live commentary on Off the Ball on News Talk with Joe Malloy. We will see you next Friday at around about 11:30. Until then, take care.
The football kick-off
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.